All right, cool. Johnny Space Adventure lore. Okay, basic rundown of lore so far. So, most important. So the one episode Johnny Space Adventure that's out now is part 8 of a, as of now, intends to be a 10-part series. At some point, probably never. But so like this is just like a piece of, like the full picture, of course. In the video, like as I mentioned in the director's commentary, in the video, Johnny's never referred to as Johnny by any characters. He's only referred to Johnny in like the text dumps that are in between each scene. So in other words, he's only referred to Johnny like out of universe. So Johnny is a placeholder name for this being. He's not Johnny, as in like he's not the Johnny that the title Johnny Space Adventure is referring to. That's the first big twist.
Okay. Should we go over this opening text scroll?
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with the War of the Ancients. Okay, so 15 million years ago, after the War of the Ancients. So, War of the Ancients would be, it's
And you don't have
it's
to
an
get too
event.
detailed right now. Like, you don't have to decide the lore of everything just right now.
Yeah, I'll just like bullet point this. Okay, War of the Ancients. Cosmic beings were fighting, and this like started some universe of some sort. Like somehow their fighting created existence. So it's like the wording about this. So it's 15 million years ago after the War of the Ancients. So the path, and it says the path of light begin to converge. The path of light are converging 15 million years ago. So it's implied that that's shortly after the War of the Ancients, but that's not like that. That's an undefined amount of time. So it could be a relatively long amount of time. Like it wasn't during the War of the Ancients that the Path of Light was like, because they didn't exist during the war. It was only after.
Okay. So, they converged 15 million years ago, right? That wasn't...
Yeah,
15 million years ago wasn't when the War of the Ancients occurred?
yeah. It was presumably not long before. Like it could be as short as like 100 or 1,000 years ago, the
Okay.
years after the war. So their converging was that's like for some reason like they're doing some sort of ritual when they're converging, and that's a sign that like of the end times. So like the universe is going to end. Like they're signaling the doom of the universe.
Is this them receiving some kind of revelation that the world is going to be ending? So they are performing the end of the world ritual, or is this them deciding that the world is going to end?
I think I wrote it with like an implication that they are the ones like causing the world to end,
Okay.
causing the universe, it's causing the end times.
So they're not
However,
just delivering the message.
yeah, like the wording is vague enough that like it could kind of go either way, but I think my original intent with it was like there's some sort of occult society that want to create some sort of cataclysmic event.
Okay. So was their goal informing to cause the end of the universe?
Yeah, yeah, that's like that's what the Path of Light wants. They want destruction of the universe.
Okay.
I don't think I really have a motive for that yet, but that's what
How
they want.
how long did they exist before they performed this ritual? Did they form
Uh, I
and immediately did this, or have they been around for a while at this point?
relatively short amount of time. So like, I mean, they've been around long enough that like they're an actual group. Like again, this is and since this is like way before the main timeline of the story, like the exact moment timing isn't super important,
Right.
but it was relatively short. Like, because this is when the universe is still really new.
Hmm.
Like, it's a super young universe, but like, so these people, it's like like they formed, and then like that was their plan from the beginning. That's why they formed.
So did they have credibility? Like, when they gathered, did people believe that they were actually going to end the world, or did they think they were just a bunch of crazy cultists?
Uh, Probably anyone who like actually knew what was going on definitely knew that like they were doing something legit. Like it's the whatever they were, they weren't like something that like everybody knew about. Like whatever the heck was like around during that time. Because again, like young universe, like I don't know like who's there. I don't know how many people are, how advanced these societies are. But yeah, like the next sentence mentions the king. Like the king definitely knew that like, oh, these guys are legit. Like anybody who's like involved with like these high up conspiracy type things, they definitely knew what they were doing.
So it doesn't. You don't have to get too specific with this, but
Okay.
when the king interrupted, was this a large event that took a lot of planning, or did he just like show up and say booga booga and get in their way?
Um, I don't really think it's like too important like how much effort it took, but the point is just like whatever the king did, or like he's a very powerful figure. The
Mm-hmm.
king is he's more or less like the force of good in this situation. Like the evil was coming together to like destroy the universe, and the king came in and just like stopped their ritual, like blocked whatever magic there were, probably killed a lot of the Path of Light members, and just like stopped the ritual somehow. And it was something that only the king could do.
Oh,
Like
okay,
whatever
that's
it
what I
was
was
like
wondering.
yeah, it was unique to the king. Like he has some sort of special property or something. Like he was really holy or something or whatever. It's not really too important, but it had to be the king.
Okay, let's see. The king interrupted the ritual, and there's a secret. So they disbanded immediately after that.
Yeah, so like they just like they were gone, and like the Path of Light still existed, but they were very small and they were hiding. They weren't very powerful. In other words, they were like just not really relevant. Like they just sort of because their big goal was thwarted. They weren't really relevant for uh millions of years is the next one because the omniverse lived on in peace for millions of years.
Okay, what is the omniverse as opposed to
Oh
the
yeah.
universe?
Okay, yeah. So the omniverse is the existence that was created during the yeah, because the omniverse is something that's referenced a lot explicitly in the actual story. So the omniverse was what was created by the War of the Ancients, which the omniverse is essentially a collection of universes. It's like a lot of them, maybe infinite. I'm not sure. And things that like mess with space and time. So like later when uh, the main character in Johnny's Space Adventure gets like the ability to travel through time, like it's the omniverses are kind of like I guess like a better word for them might actually be timelines because like they're
Okay,
different timelines of the same universe.
so does Johnny's Space Adventure take place in just one of these universes or timelines?
It's that's when stuff gets really weird because there's like the whole thing about like Johnny being I'm gonna refer to him as Johnny by the way, but
The
with
character,
Johnny,
the character in the show, in the
yeah, the
movie.
main character, yeah, I need to give him a name,
Okay.
but yeah, the character that's the main character in this story,
Okay.
uh, yeah, so he's like stuck in a time loop and stuff, and like he's facing with like his future self and stuff, and he's traveling between timelines, and that's not normal. That's not really something that like normally happens. It's kind of weird because like as the next sentence says, like the space-time continuum was disrupted. Like something is like going really screwy with time. So it's I guess the answer to your question would be multiple universes because it's kind of like there's some really weird stuff going on with like different timelines are like moving across each other. They're like things are happening like as you see in the story, like there's more than one Johnny. Like
Yeah.
that's not normal.
Okay.
So weird things are happening.
So I guess that begs the question when we were talking about having a name for this character. Who is
Uh-huh.
Johnny?
Yeah. I'm not 100% sure about that right now.
Okay.
I'm thinking Johnny is to be like the protagonist, the hero in the overarching story of Johnny's Space Adventure. The main character in this story that we see here is going to be the antagonist for the story. That's really the plan that I have laid out. Is that he's the antagonist because he's working with the Path of Light here. He might not realize that like what he's doing is wrong, at least at this point.
Okay.
But he's going to be the antagonist, and Johnny is the protagonist.
Okay.
I should give this guy a name. Let's give him a name here and now. Uh, trying to think like it's got to be something like kind of ominous, but not like too weird. got to be like I think I've kind of like my idea is that like he's kind of like a complete like polar opposite to what Johnny is. So like the antithesis of this character is what Johnny is. So the character in this story should be named something that's like kind of mirrors that. It's Johnny and backwards. You nudge.
Who was Belial again?
Belial's the scientist on the spaceship.
So he's
that
not
you
a
meet.
super important character.
He's super important to this story because what he does is because he's the one that, like, as I'll get into later, like he's able to recreate. He's able to essentially give our main character the essence of the king, which gives him like the power to break out of the timeline. I will have to go into that more, but so
Okay.
he's super important to this story. But like in terms of the overarching narrative, he's really only a small piece of it.
Is he, in general terms, good or evil?
I think Belial would be more like maybe like a chaotic neutral type thing.
Okay.
Because as it's like it's near the end of the text scroll, but it says that Belial, he was basically just like a scientist essentially who came across ancient texts telling about the War of the Ancients and the king, and he just became really fascinated with it and just like kind of became obsessed with it and was just like endlessly researching it, and like through that research was what like allowed him to do the things that he does in the main story. So he's not really like some cosmic being or anything. He's just a dude.
Okay. So I'm assuming you got the name Belial from Realms of the Haunting. Is that where you got it from?
Yeah, Belial's actually a name that's in actually quite a few things. I know for sure it's in Diablo 3. Here, let me just like Google real quick.
It's a name. It's one of the names for Satan in the Bible.
Yeah.
That's
like
what
I know
it
it's one of those
originates
like
from.
yeah.
So he isn't supposed to represent Satan, is he?
Yeah, like he isn't himself a force of evil, but he was someone who allowed to further the goals of evil, which is the path of light and our main character here. Like they might not realize it, at least like the path of light does, but so it's possible that his name was called Belial as some form of like destiny, like he was born to do this thing, and he was born to do something that like furthered this evil cause.
Okay, and I think maybe he wasn't necessarily unique to that name. There have likely been in the time, in these millions of years, others named Belial.
Yeah.
Like he isn't the single Belial, I would think.
Yeah, and like I said, he is just like a dude. Like he's not really like some like magical being or anything. Like he's really just like a guy that figured stuff out. Yeah, like I wonder if there could be like some other sort of like biblical reference or something for our main character. Or maybe he could just be nameless for the whole thing. Like that could be fascinating.
Yeah.
That could be his name that would be used in like the placeholder texts from here on. Like the Nameless. Yeah, like maybe not that, but like the Nameless Man. Something like that. That could be his name.
Yeah. Okay.
Like it's almost become like ingrained in my mind that this guy doesn't have a name. That like I think that's almost fitting.
Yeah.
That's kind of the twist. That's the twist that the commentary reveals. Is that because you just kind of assume his name is Johnny because that's the name of the title and he's referred to that in the texts, but no character calls him Johnny because that's not his name.
Okay, so back to the text scroll.
I think the next one was an unknown. The space-time continuum was disrupted.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's so this is kind of the starting incident that starts our story here. That's depicted here. So the space-time continuum was disrupted by the path of light. Like they slowly like have gained traction back up over time. They have an underground movement, and they conducted some sort of ritual that messes up time. Like they called upon, it wasn't necessarily them that did it, but they call it, because the next sentence is an unknown force began filling the realms. So like they called upon
this unknown force.
Yeah. They opened a portal, or they summoned, or like they did something that like caused some sort of something really weird, like something kind of unknown, probably some sort of ancient something or other, to start filling the realms, which, like, the realms is be like referring to. I probably should have written the omniverse there, because it's just like some sort of force, like a.
When you say the realms, you mean?
Yeah, the realms. Yeah,
Okay.
like the realms would probably be more referring to the omniverse.
Okay.
Like it's filling the universes, and but like more specifically, it's like filling the timelines. Like it's something is going on with the time. Some sort of force is messing it up and causing things like time loops. And this event also brings the Path of Light back up to kind of their former glory, because that's the next sentence: is the Path of Light came once again to fruition.
So is
They
this
kind of like make a comeback.
roughly the time of the movie, or is this still a while before it?
This is still a while before it. I mean, it's relatively close. Like, I would say that'd probably be, just to like spitball a number, maybe like, oh, okay. See, this is tricky when I say about how many years ago this happened. So the space-time continuum was disrupted, and that's when that's when the nameless man got trapped in the time loop, and he's been trapped in the time loop for an unknown amount of time, which is kind of like one of those things, like, like, how long are you in a time loop? Like,
Yeah.
for the character, he's been in there for who knows how long, like hundreds and hundreds of iterations. But like in terms of like the overall timeline, like when he breaks out of the time, it's like as if just like, oh, it's been like 2 years, like however long it is. Actually, so yeah, so the space-time continuum was disrupted, and that's the first time that's when the first time loop, that's when the nameless man is trapped in the time loop. And this, like, just to clarify, the story that we see in the video is when he breaks out of the time loop.
Okay.
So it's the final iteration of the time loop.
So this movie that we have, does this take? So say again when he gets stuck into the time loop.
At the exact same time that the Path of Light calls upon the unknown force to like mess up the time. So
because
I mean,
he meets the last remaining member of the Path of Light. So is this just because time got messed up?
So the Path of Light, because they called upon this force, so it's like everybody, all of the members of the Path of Light kind of like became one with this unknown force, and that allows them to kind of exist, like, so it allows at least a piece of them, like their souls, to exist outside the bounds of time. So in other words, it's like they're trapped in a time loop as well. It's like they remember every time, like the time resets back to every time it loops. So by the time by the time the nameless man actually meets with someone of the Path of Light, all the other members have just given up, because they've been trapped in this time loop for so long that they just like have given up hope. They're like, there's no way, like, he's going to be trapped in this forever. So they've all given up except for this one last member.
So they're trying to help get him out.
Yes.
Okay.
So I need to say something real quick. I don't know if this contradicts anything I said earlier, and if it does, this overrides it. Johnny does not, or the nameless man does not know he's trapped in a time loop. At least not at first, because so like what happens when he gets the sword of Amarine, which is that little stone.
Yeah.
That imbues him with all of the memories of the past time loop. So like when the time loop begins, when he's working in the office, he's just like a normal dude. He doesn't know that he's trapped in a time loop, but he receives the sword of Amarine, and then and the sword of Amarine allows him to travel through time, which like eventually that makes him become future Johnny, who he has to fight, or future nameless man. Ugh.
So does he get the sword of Amarine each loop of the time, or is this the first time he gets it?
Yeah. So he gets it each time. Maybe to explain this better, so let's like follow the first time loop. So Johnny's working in his office, and so it's just like the events of the thing as it goes normally at first. So it's like he's working in his office, his future self busts in and says, "I'm you from the future. There's no time to explain. Quick, grab the chalice." and he throws the chalice at him. The chalice is what gives him the memories of the past.
Okay.
So his future self comes in and throws at him the chalice, which will give him memories of all the different time loops he's been in. The Sword of Amrine gives him the powers to travel through time.
Okay, so the chalice gives him memories of past iterations of the time loop.
Yes. Yeah, so like all the previous lives that he's led, like he can now remember them and he can call upon that knowledge.
So
then
first time he gets it, he doesn't get any memories.
Yeah, he doesn't get anything. It's like he just gets hit by a chalice and is like, okay, what? Like literally nothing happens.
Okay.
So then he goes through, and each time loop would be slightly different. Like it doesn't play out exactly the same here. Like obviously he doesn't encounter Belial, but a bunch of stuff happens. But so eventually through some like weird way, he gets the Sword of Emerine, and that allows him to travel through space and time. And so he goes back in time to tell his future self and throw the chalice at him.
Okay. So he's working in his office, future self busts in, gives him the chalice, and he gets memories now.
Mm-hmm.
Then he obtains the Sword of Amrine.
Yeah, at some point, like through some turn of events, it would probably be different, or at least slightly different every time. In the story that we see, like he just goes straight to the Path of Light, member, because he knows exactly where he is because of all the memories that he's had.
Okay.
But so it's like, so in other timelines, like something else would happen. But in some way, he gets the Sword of Amrine somehow.
So do all of the members of the Path of Light, do they lose their memories each time loop, or do they keep them the whole time?
No. Yeah, that's super important, is that because they've been imbued with the mysterious force. So from the second iteration onward, so like once like he starts to get memories of past lives, the second iteration onward, each iteration has a fight between the past and the future iterations of the Nameless Man.
Okay.
Because it's like the future. So like the future one comes back and he travels back in time using the Sword of Amrine, and then the past one goes and gets his own Sword of Amrine, and they fight because the Sword of Amrine also lets them shoot lasers and stuff.
Yeah, right.
So they have a fight, but the fight always ends in some sort of stalemate. So they can't defeat each other because they're equals. They're the same people. Because the past Johnny got hit by the chalice, so it's like they both have the exact same memories. They're essentially the exact same person. Yeah. So they can't defeat each other.
So old Johnny has all of the same memories.
Yeah. So essentially they fight and they try to just make somebody win, but they can't. And eventually that's how it happens at the end of every timeline iteration. It's like they fight until they're exhausted, and then the past Nameless Man is like, okay, now I have to travel back in time and I become the future Nameless Man for the next cycle.
Okay. Is this when he goes back and throws the chalice?
Yeah. Yeah, this is when he goes back and he crashes through the office wall and throws the chalice to start a new cycle.
So each iteration, Johnny and I'm assuming the rest of the world loses all their memories.
Yeah, so everybody except the Path of Light, like they don't realize a time loop is happening. All the other humans and stuff.
Okay.
So only someone who is imbued with the mysterious force. Which that is now going to explain what the chalice is. The chalice is an object that is infused with the mysterious force.
Okay.
And that's so like it hits him, and then his soul is able to exist independent of time, if that makes sense. So that allows him to essentially realize what time trickery is going on.
So the Path of Light members are always in that state, right?
Yeah, because they were the ones that called upon it, so like they kind of like just like got it on them, I guess. Somehow. How it happened isn't really too important, but yeah.
So they're all part of the mysterious force, essentially?
Yeah, like that could be a way of putting it. Like each member is kind of like they're carrying a part of it with them, I guess. That could be a good way of how the ritual works.
So they retain their memories, and then after each iteration, as iterations go on, they get tired of Johnny not being able to defeat himself.
Yeah, they slowly, one by one, they lose hope that that the time loop is going to be broken.
Because they can see that both Johnnies are always equally matched.
Yeah, they see that they're always equally matched, and like the time and different events happen in every timeline. Like things happen differently and things change, but yeah, those are the two events that always happen in every timeline. Is that the past Johnny gets his own sword of Amarine, and then they fight,
Okay.
and it always ends in a stalemate, and the cycle begins again.
So is there a Johnny that is supposed to win?
So the Path of Light didn't necessarily know this when they called upon the mysterious force, but from like a destiny perspective, like what the purpose of the time loop is to give Johnny experience and fighting power and stuff, so that when he comes out of the time loop, he's essentially like at his peak. Like he's the best. Like he's the best fighter and knows the most stuff as much as like his physical body possibly can.
So they're
if
trying to
that
make
makes
it
sense.
20XX.
You could even put it as like he's trying to become a god, essentially. Like he's just trying to like the purpose. So like when he comes out of the timeline, it's like he's lived so many lives that like he basically just knows everything and can do anything.
Wait, I guess this is the Nameless Man, right? Not Johnny.
Yeah, Nameless Man. It's going to be tricky switching, but
Yeah.
that distinction is incredibly important. Yeah, I guess the next sentence here: an unsuspecting man known as Johnny, the Nameless Man, was soon to become leader of the Omniverse. So I guess that would actually be the purpose of it. So it's like he's trying to become essentially a being that can lead all of the universes, and so he needs all the experience.